Airborne operations were an essential component of the Allied invasion, and since D-Day, the U.S. Army has stood ready to drop airborne forces anywhere in the world at any time. The U.S. Army Golden Knights are America's most proficient parachutists. Led at the time of this recording by Green Beret Colonel Andy Moffit and Command Sergeant Major Adam Breeding, the Golden Knights set the example for airborne insertion onto any drop zone. Colonel Moffit and Sergeant Major Breeding joined me atop the Normandy Resistance Monument in Saint Marie Dumont to discuss just what it means to be airborne, both in 1944 and today. We broke down what it takes to join the Golden Knights, how they maintain standards, and why they're always competing for the perfect jump, especially when the eyes of the world are watching. Check out our conversation from the birthplace of modern special forces and home to one of the largest airborne drops in history. Then head over to our YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform to catch all of our coverage from the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Follow the Jedburgh podcast and the Green Beret Foundation on YouTube. Don't miss Sergeant Major Breeding Threaten Me with a Good Time. And make sure to tune into our first documentary, Unknown Heroes Behind Enemy Lines at D-Day, the story of Operation Jedburgh. Available now only on YouTube. Colonel Moffit, Sergeant Major Breeding, welcome to the Jedburgh podcast. You guys flew in here or jumped in here.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Jumping right into things, aren't we?
You are.
Just over our left shoulder here.
Yeah. It couldn't have been more perfect. Okay, we're here in Saint Marie Dumont. We're not that far from Utah Beach. Behind us sits the one and only, I would say, one of the most important monuments here in Normandy, France, but the Normandy Resistance Monument, honoring our legacy back to the Jedburghs.
That's right.
And Operation Jedburgh, 3-man teams, parachute behind enemy lines, one American, one British, one French. What's your mission? Conduct sabotage and subversion operations to prevent the Germans from reinforcing the beaches at Normandy. Win at all costs.
And they did, yeah.
And they did.
Crushed
But it started here. It started in these fields the night before D-Day, June 5th, 1944. And during the ceremony today, as General Ferguson and a number of others, the mayor of the town, everybody was speaking, above us kept flying these formations of now C-130s. Okay, but we had C-47s back then,
yeah.
right? And some of them were painted like the old C-47s. And right at the end, when the timing couldn't have been more perfect, with the national anthem playing for both the United States and France and the Ballad of the Green Beret, out jumps the Army Golden Knights. It was awesome.
Almost like it was scripted.
It was like it was scripted. So let's talk about the Golden Knights. I mean, the mission of the Golden Knights is in a lot of ways to drive some awareness, as to who we are and what we're doing. But in your words, what is the mission of the Golden Knights?
So we talked a little bit about history, obviously being here for D-Day, and the Golden Knights goes back to 1959 when General Joseph Stilwell, he brought together about 15 paratroopers from different organizations, 101st, 82nd, 18th Airborne Corps, and they formed what was then called the Strategic Air Parachute Command. And it was at that time to compete with the Soviet Union in the new sport of skydiving. So it started
new sport of skydiving
at that time in the late 50s.
I mean, there's a lot of folks who jumped into these fields who might argue with you that it was new in 1959.
So a lot of parachute technology was being developed at that time. There was still a lot of R&D going on, a lot of crossover technology between, just like there has been in medicine, between military and civilian. And so that's where it started for the Golden Knights. And they took on their moniker of the Golden Knights about 2 years later in 1961, named after the gold medals they had received and from knights from conquering the skies. So that's where it began, again with 15 paratroopers, and we're about a 100-person organization today. About 50 of those are jumpers. So the mission has morphed through the years, but like you mentioned, the Marketing and Engagement Brigade, today our mission is really to connect America's people to her Army. Unless you have a family member that was a veteran or you grew up around a military installation, a lot of people are really disconnected from their services, besides what you may see in the movies. So that's really where we and our sister battalions come in, and performing in professional sporting events and air shows all over the country, and just interacting with the public and sharing the opportunities for service. So that's why we exist.
talk about your careers. I mean, Sergeant Major. I mean, you've got huge responsibility here. I mean, not only logistically, right? There's a logistic piece of this thing. There's the personnel piece of this thing. There's the competition piece, and you can talk for a second about the different teams that live within the Golden Knights. But before you get to that, where were you before, and why come into the Golden Knights?
That's a great question. So I joined the Army right out of high school. I was 18 years old. Went special operations just to kick my career off. Jumped around there for about 12 years or so. Really enjoyed that, but I knew the Army had more to offer me. So I wanted to get out and see a little bit more of what was out there. Came to 82nd, and then from there got selected for Sergeant Major, and coming out of the academy, did an Sergeant Major job, and the Army was like, hey, you're the guy that's qualified to be the Sergeant Major for the Golden Knights. And I said, are you talking guy behind me? Because I don't think I'm quite that guy, but brought me here. Extremely fortunate to have a commander like Colonel Moffit, extremely knowledgeable and experienced in reference to the sport of skydiving. He was on the military academy skydiving team, so very extensive background in the sport, and it allowed me to come in and understand and learn and grow at my own pace with the team. I didn't have to take it all in at one time, so to speak. I was able to learn at my own pace. But one of the biggest things I think coming in, I really had to check my ego at the door. As a Sergeant Major, as a senior enlisted member of the Army, you're expected to be the subject matter expert in everything in your organization. And I was coming into an organization where I was not that person. So that was a huge, huge growth step for me to do that. And again, Colonel Moffit helped facilitate that growth for me. I think if I had a different commander, I think I probably would not have been as successful as I have been while I'm here. But I'm extremely fortunate for him. And then to hit your point about the team, so yeah, we're comprised of what we consider 6 sections. We have 2 demonstration teams that do the things that Colonel Moffit talked about, jumped into sporting events, do air shows across the country, really connect America's people to our Army. And then we have a competition section, both in 4-way formation skydiving and canopy piloting. So they have 2 separate missions. Our canopy piloting competes in 3 events: speed, zone accuracy, and distance. And they participate, cross country as well. And then we have our tandem team, which is our huge, probably one of our second biggest workhorse, I'd say, behind the demo teams, who really get out and interact with those centers of influence across the country. Really your educators, your administrators, who really get the message out there to say that the Army is the service of choice, and show them what you really can and can't do. And then, of course, we would not be able to do anything if it was not for our aviation section, toting us all over the country, flying us here, flying us there, just turning loops out at Laurenburg drop zone. I think I was out there jumping on Thursday last week, and we did 20 lifts in half a day.
In an afternoon.
Yeah, and it was just incredible. And they put in so much hard work to make sure that, we're on target, on time, and ready to go whenever we call them. Phenomenal organization. I tell them every day, they never cease to amaze me with their level of professionalism and proficiency in what they do, and just incredible individuals.
Yeah, wow. We think about the soft truths, and soft truth number 5, that support element, lives there, right? And yeah, it's cool to see the guys jumping out, right, and parachuting down, but the amount of work that goes in to make it over that drop zone and push somebody out,
absolutely,
is the unsung heroes, of the whole organization. And you don't come from a bad background yourself.
Not too bad. No, I can't complain. Started out enlisted, worked in an electronics maintenance battalion on Fort Bragg, my first duty station in the late 90s. Was an airborne radio repairman, and had interest in going out and doing challenging things, and had a packet into SF at the time, and I was trying to figure out what path I wanted to go, and I had a family member recommend, have you considered going to West Point? And I said, absolutely not. I could not cut it at a place like that, nor would I probably even fit in. And but it got, the seed was planted, and I started thinking about it. So anyway, ended up putting in a packet, went to the prep school at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey at that time, Met my wife, who is also a prepster, and that's where I got into skydiving, like Sergeant Major mentioned, on the West Point parachute team. So that's where that got started. Doing style and accuracy back then, which was really popular in the skydiving community, and which is funny looking at pictures on the walls at the Golden Knight headquarters today. Nobody does style anymore. Actually, it's more popular here in Europe than it is in the States.
What's style?
So style,
because I was a static line guy on a mountain, on a mountain team. So I'm good. I don't go underwater and I don't go that high up.
Static line
unless I got 3 points of contact.
So this was the pre-GoPro era, of course. And so to judge style, you had one of these telescopic lenses from the ground. It was about 6 feet long, and they'd point it up at the sky. You would get out of this airplane.
Excited over here, by the way.
And he would have loved it. And so you wore this spandex suit, of any color of the rainbow. You'd get out, you'd get in this tiny little tuck position. You got your knees all the way up to your chin, your arms out like little wings, and you got to do left turn, right turn, back loop, right turn, left turn, back loop, as many times as you can until you run out of time or altitude. And then you get down to the bottom, they would judge you. So that's how I started out in skydiving. And just trying to hit the tuffet every day. They have a little 16-centimeter electronic pad on this inflatable air tuffet, and you'd have to land on that and get scored. We'd have files. We'd file down the heels of our shoes to try to have that pinpoint landing. So most of that stuff is gone from the sport today. Although, like I said, you still do see it in Europe. And then spent some time in the infantry. Started out up in Fort Lewis. And then later went to SF, grew up in 7th Group, and then had the opportunity when the command list came out. The Golden Knights was one of the options to compete for, and I had been away from the sport for a long time, and it was just very attractive just to get to work in an organization with such high-performing, high-motivated people, small, highly skilled teams. It was like it was like being in SF again. So. Really fortunate to work in such a unit with cohesion and camaraderie as the Golden Knights, as much history as they do behind them. So really enjoyed it.
What do you look for in the team?
So for Sergeant Major and I think culture is king. Culture is everything. It's what drives our performance. It's what drives how we treat each other. So what we look for in somebody that's coming from the team, is that what you're asking? So on the technical side, just talking bare bones prerequisites, you have to have at least 100 jumps. That could be military or civilian, but they have to be free fall jumps. And then beyond that, Sergeant Major scours the packets, just looking for a top quality soldier. So they've got a good background. They're a good team player. It's a lot of the same qualities that the selection committee looks for in SFAS. Able to play well with others, can think well, low behavioral risk. They're not going to get in trouble. We send guys all over the world. In most cases, Sergeant Major and I are not with them, and they're very much in the public eye. They got to be able to speak in public and just be ambassadors for the Army. So we've got great guys and gals that do an excellent job of that.
Really looking for that person that's going to go above and beyond, just like you were saying in the SF Special Operations community. That person you don't have to push through the mission, who's really going to charge through it and go out and get things done and better themselves because they want to be better for the whole, not just for themselves. And that comes through looking for that top-tier soldier and the quality that we want to bring to the team. And our cadre for selection that we select, the Colonel and I kind of handpick them to assess that incoming group. They do a phenomenal job of looking at an individual and saying, hey, I think they will or will not be successful. And it really comes down to also how teachable are you. A lot of the people we have come through the selection are senior enlisted members of the service, and can they be a follower again? That's really a struggle for some people. Again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about checking your ego. Some people just don't have the ability to do that. And so we find the ones that we can come in and really, enhance the capabilities of the team and take us to that next level.
Well, yeah, because I think it's interesting, right? If 100 jumps as a baseline in a unit is a ton of jumps.
Yeah.
You're a senior, experienced, a free fallist, right? But now you come here. Oh, guess what? You're the new guy.
You're a rookie.
You're a rookie. Yeah. You got 100 jumps. Great. We had that last week.
I did 1/4 of that the other day.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
So you do have to check that ego, and you do have to say that, well, here I am, and I probably have a lot to learn because you're doing something now at a much more advanced level than people have done before.
Yeah.
There's also a tremendous amount of autonomy
Yes.
in your role and on the team. Talk for a minute about the op tempo, the amount of events that you're actually doing in any given week or month or year, and how you operate very decentralized.
Yeah, so Captain Pollock, our operations officer / headquarters commander, literally we were just talking about this with the Liberty Jump team earlier today. So the team themselves, probably the demo, probably most of all, they're on the road 220 plus days a year. And then for the Colonel and I, we try to get out to maybe half that, probably just under, to try and support the team. And we try to support everybody, demo, competition, tandem, all of it, to make sure that we're out there with all of them. And then we have the remainder of the staff that tries to get out there, like Captain Pollock and our first sergeant, get out there probably about 1/4 of that time. So the op tempo is significantly high. We are fortunate in the fact that we do have the autonomy to select the things we do. Now, we are directed to do certain things, but Colonel Moffit has granted a lot of leniency in assessing based on metrics if this show is better than that show, and vice versa, and things like that. So it is very, very fast-paced, and you have to be able to handle that. And we talked about this, I think, last week. Colonel Moffit does a phenomenal job of looking at past metrics and how things have panned out to say, yeah, that's one we want to continue doing, or hey, we recommend we don't support that. Or if he's at a crossroads, like, I'm not real sure, he'll send up the data in his assessment, to hire and let them make that decision. But we are, like you said, granted a lot of autonomy. Probably when I first learned it, the Army policy of command and control, I really wasn't sure, but this is a working example of how command and control really, really operates and is successful. So I think, like I said, Colonel Moffit and the operations team do a great job of ensuring that our team is getting where we need to have the most influence and impact for USAREC in the Army.
What's the best part about being on the team?
I'd say the best part is, like I was touching on before, really the camaraderie of the organization, and just being able to look around on any given day and wanting to pinch yourself and saying, how the heck, looking back, how the heck did I get here, to get to do this great job. And we meet so many amazing people around the country, and I never really had the traveled to a lot of places, but not really across our own country, and getting to meet all the people we meet everywhere. Chicago, Seattle, Miami, New York, Kansas City,
LA.
We're just crisscrossing the country, every month, and just the people are so hospitable and warm. That's just the people we meet, and the job we get to do, to represent the Army.
Yeah. What is it? What does it mean to be here? And I know you guys have a tremendous schedule while you're here. I think this is about your only afternoon where you're double and triple booked, I think, all week. But when we think about Normandy, when we think about this region, the 82nd, the 101st, the Jedburghs, fighting soldiers from the sky.
Right.
And we listened to, as you were coming in, we were singing the Ballad of the Green Beret here at the ceremony. But this is where airborne operations really began.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about this kind of before we started today, just about the history of what took place here, and how, if you look back on a lot of the unit histories that we're commemorating this week, were from the operations that happened, in this short time frame at Market Garden, at Normandy, of when they made their name. And it's just been very humbling. I visited Normandy for the first time in 2020. A buddy's dad was stationed in Brussels at SHAPE, and so we were a couple of poor cadet candidates, and so we were using his house as a base of operations, and came over here, and just that was the first time in my life I had ever experienced the level of patriotism that I witnessed in like the town of Bayeux, one of the first villages to get liberated during World War II. And despite it being a couple of generations removed, was just the gratitude that I experienced helped me really understand what they felt, and what it was like. So it's truly an honor to be able to be included in this opportunity to celebrate those events and what our those that came before us did.
I think for me what hit is just the level of patriotism and pride that they have over here. Like I look across the street and I see Winston over here in his full getup.
Yeah.
He's just killing that as a replica World War II soldier, right? But you see that every town you go to around here, and it's just phenomenal the way they carry that heritage with them and how proud they are. And you talk to them and they're just so excited to tell you about their grandpa or their great grandpa or somebody in their family who participated in this. It just moves you. Like you can't help but be moved. And then just to be able to be part of it and say, hey, I was there for the D-Day 80th. It just blows my mind. We were talking about before. I've been trying to come to see this thing my whole entire career, and I finally get to come now, and I'm so thankful. And definitely going to take all of this in and as best I can.
Yep. It's really amazing to see here that they haven't forgotten. Mm-hmm. And that we're only a generation past, those who partook in what occurred here, and they remember. And the very first flag we saw when we came into Normandy, the area, was an American flag.
Mm-hmm.
And you could go to towns in the U.S.
and you don't see definitely
an American flag.
That's right.
And I think that as a population, as a society, we have to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had to tell Colonel Moffit, we saw these people dressed up and reenacting, and he thought they were soldiers that were tasked, like, hey, that was their duty to come over here and dress up like that. We're like, sir, those are local kids. Yeah. You just don't see that kind of patriotism back home, and it kind of hurts a little bit, but when you come here, you remember. It kind of reminds you what we fight for and why we do the things we do, and it just kind of fills you back in with that purpose again. So it's great.
As you look forward and the future of the Golden Knights, I mean, you've been around for quite a number of years now, since 1959, but what's next for the organization?
So we think the future's really bright. We've taken big strides over the last couple of years to modernize some things that we're doing with the team. So you figure at any given air show, the demonstration that's performed there, a lot of those maneuvers have been performed for the past 40 years. And so we've reached out across the skydiving community and brought in a lot of disciplines and maneuvers that are conducted elsewhere, and brought some of those same capabilities onto the team. So over the past year, conducting wingsuiting maneuvers, you'll probably see some of that here this week. With smoke, which gives it really great visual effect for some of the drop flags, and gives, we live in a digital world now, and so our audience is really inundated with being able to see things from any part of the world at any given time. So it really gives us a great visual effect to be able to incorporate 3D photography, which is fairly new still, and being able to incorporate that into virtual reality demonstrations. Base jumping, and being able to put our audience, to say a young student, in the eyes of a Golden Knight, jumping off of the New River Gorge Bridge in Fayetteville, West Virginia, or off the top of a mountain in Moab, Utah, or so those are just a few of the things that have been brought on within the last couple of years. Also, competition team worked really hard to set up a partnership with iFly. So we have something called Army Body Flight Experience, where we give people the opportunity to fly in an indoor capacity in a wind tunnel, and put the equipment on them, throw them in the tunnel, and within a couple hours have them be able to fly their own bodies. Is pretty. It's really enjoyable.
Wow. All right, so what we got to do after this is we got to set a date.
Come
down and see you guys.
Let's do it.
All right, I want to do the wind tunnel, It's funny. I never wanted to do this when I was in 10th group, but I guess now I do. So I want to do the wind tunnel.
Open invitation.
Thank you. And then, we'll just. I guess I'll get strapped to one of you guys.
Definitely.
And, jump out of
Let's
a
do it.
plane.
100%.
All right,
So,
sounds great.
And I told Jesse we'd bring her too because I'm not gonna be able to do that without her.
That sounds great.
That's
yeah.
gonna be a lot of fun. All right, test question.
All right.
You guys live in a world that you got to have habits. Okay, you got to do things precisely the same way every time because there's a lot of risk in what you guys are doing. And I was talking to your medic the other day, and the conversation, I said, "Do you see a lot of injuries?" And she said, "No, not really, but when I do, it's pretty ugly."
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a lot of risk in what you guys are doing,
Right.
which means that you've got to really be focused. You got to have strong habits. We talk about the Jedburghs and the statue behind us. And I say the Jedburghs had to be able to do 3 things every day as their core foundational tasks. They had to be able to shoot, they had to be able to move, and they had to be able to communicate. Mm-hmm. Because when they parachuted out of those C-47s starting the night of June 5th, and they clandestinely then infiltrated into towns like this to link up with the French resistance forces, that had to be their focus.
Yeah.
It couldn't be, how do I use my radio, how do I employ my weapon, and how do I move through the darkness? If you do those things with precision, you focus on challenging tasks. Mm-hmm. What are the 3 things that you each do every day to set the conditions for success in your world?
Mm-hmm. So for me, one of the biggest things I do is ensure that we have the right personnel. And that starts with our selection, bringing the right people onto the team. Very fortunate to come into a team that has a very solid foundation of leaders that are ready to develop that next generation of Golden Knights. Our team leaders do a phenomenal job of planning the training that they deem necessary, getting that approved by myself and the commander to go forward to prepare for that upcoming show season. But they are just so experienced that the intricacies that they put into their training don't even make us question their ability. You look at a training plan that's so in-depth, that's so detailed, you're like, yeah, you're hitting everything. There might be 1 or 2 very small things they miss, but they got the big parts of it, and they do a great job of passing that down and, preparing the next guy to become that trainer for that next generation, so on and so forth. So I think it starts there. And then for me, again, helping him by assessing those training plans to ensure that we're getting, so by the time they get to him, he just, what I call him, his officer tweaks. He puts his officer tweaks on him, and we're good to go. And then finally for me, it's just the care of the soldiers and the team as a whole. Making sure that they have everything they need to be successful, making sure that their families are taken care of, and then incorporating all of that into one team. Like Colonel Moffit said, I've never been in a group, but I don't think I've ever been in an organization that is this close, this tied into one another and their significant others and their families. Everybody's kids knows everybody else's kids and wives, and it's phenomenal. Just the way they get along and come together. Whether it's just for a family day or in a time of crisis or need, everybody steps up, from the youngest all the way up to the most senior member of the team to ensure that everybody's getting what they need when they need and doesn't have to worry about a thing. So it's pretty good.
I would say at the individual level, on a daily basis, what keeps me going is making sure that every day I'm getting in some spiritual food, some mental food, and some physical food. So for me, that's getting in the Word of God every morning, just getting my mind right before I start the day. Kind of what are the priorities going to be? How am I going to maintain composure despite stress and everything else, and just be who I need to be for the organization, for my family. Kind of mental food, making sure that I'm try to maintain a habit of reading and learning and just be a lifelong learner, as I know you are too, in love with history. And most of the books I read are recommendations from other people that I bump into. I get books in the mail from my soldiers' parents and stuff that I'll meet on the road. They'll send. I got a couple in the mail before we came out here. We were reading on the plane, and then physical food. Just me and Sergeant Major getting in holistic health and fitness gym. We got a couple of great coaches that beat us up every single week. They're old bodies trying to stay in shape. They just get after us. And then I'd say at the organizational level, just building trust. There's been lots of leaders talk about, trust is our number one currency, and that's true for any high-performing organization. And then you touched on risk a little bit. So habits that allow us to do high risk, high visibility operations every single day with a healthy safety record are, of course, rehearsals, repetition. So it's amazing. I'm impressed by our team leaders and team members every single day. There's a lot that goes in behind the scenes. Anytime you see a demonstration, for a demonstrator to land on the X, on target at the last note of the national anthem, they have to know exactly what second to exit the aircraft for all of that to come into place perfectly. So they hold themselves to a very high standard. They're doing what we call dirt dives before every single jump, which is just an on the ground visualization rehearsal that they're about to what they're about to do in the air. And then we employ some cognitive performance coaches that help us with visualization, like any high performing athlete. There's been a lot of psychology studies out there about, you throw 100 free throws and you just visualize 100 free throws, and they end up performing pretty similarly. So we found that visualization, especially in competition, is very important for what we do, to be able to be in the zone when it's go time in front of 500,000 people, like this past weekend at the Indy 500 or similar events.
Yeah. You get nervous?
Always, yeah, every time. And most of the guys on the team will tell you that nervousness is all self-induced. It's not fear of injury or anything. It's all performance anxiety, just wanting to do a good job for the people that are watching you, that came out and bought a ticket to see you.
Yeah.
But it's that healthy level of fear, though. That's
right.
what keeps them focused. I've heard a couple guys say, if I ever get in the aircraft one day and I don't have that, then it's probably time for me to hang it up.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys will tell you too. We jump from thousands of feet. A good portion of the team is afraid of heights.
Yeah, it's funny. It's actually really funny.
So it's pretty hilarious to know that. So it's good stuff.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I was the. You think back to. You guys both went to Ranger School, so you go back to the. When you're crossing the beam.
Yep. Nope.
The water course.
Oh yeah.
You go up the stairs and
that
down.
thing is just shaking.
Oh yeah.
It's not.
I was the guy.
Down or anything.
I was the guy where the cadre is like, "Let's go, come on, let's go." And then you see other guys just run across. I'm like, hell no.
Yeah, exactly, man.
That's right. I still made it.
You got guys every once in a while they're getting down on all fours, crawling out to get to that step,
Terrifying.
Yeah,
but then you climb a mountain, ski some nasty pitch or jump out of an airplane, and you're like, hey, whatever.
No problem.
But then you see static line, I'm like, wow, this is really low. We're really close to these treetops.
Exactly. Like 800 feet up right now. There's zero room for error.
Well, guys, you got a busy week. Appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, great talking to you, Fran.
It's been a lot of fun watching you over the last year or so as we've gotten to know you and the team, and really been a part of that community. And you're doing some great work. And look, the professionalism shows. I know I've told you that before. There's a lot of folks out there who think they can jump out of airplanes and make it look good, but there's a big difference between good and great. And what you guys have built here, the standard you uphold, it resonates. And you don't have to be some master parachutist to look up from the sky and see there's a difference in what those guys are doing. So Keep up the good work. Keep setting the example.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you to what you're doing with the channel and what you're doing for the community, and keeping our history and what our those that come before us, what they've done, and keeping that we have short memories. So I really appreciate you keeping that at the forefront and representing the community and just being a high performer yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Right. We'll see you when we get in an airplane.
All right, sounds good.
American Jedburghs went on to form the foundation of the United States Special Forces and the Special Activities Directorate of the Central Intelligence Agency. Thanks for listening to the Jedburgh Podcast, an official program of the Green Beret Foundation. I'm your creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Join us next week for a new episode on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube for full episodes, highlights, and other long and short form content. If you like what you heard, give us a like and leave a review. Follow the Jedburgh Podcast and the Green Beret Foundation on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, or Threads. Send your comments and inquiries to fran@jedburghpodcast.com. As former members of Special Operations Forces, the Jedburgh Media Channel and the Green Beret Foundation remain committed to supporting all generations of U.S. Army Special Forces and their families. Thanks for joining us on this episode. How you prepare today determines success tomorrow.